everybody. We are at the Switch to Space event in Brussels, and we had the great honor of having with us Charles Romain. He was part of the Mars500 crew, and he is happy to share with us his experience as an analog astronaut in that mission. So, hello.
Hello.
Would you like to briefly introduce yourself and tell a bit more about your background, or just quickly?
Okay, so my name is Romain Charles, and I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm just an engineer. I worked for 6 years in the automotive industry, and then I wanted to get closer to the space world, and I was looking for opportunities, and that's when I saw the opportunity of the Mars500 mission. This mission was trying to simulate a return trip to Mars, and I applied and went through the selection that was made by the European Space Agency, and was finally selected to be part of the final crew. So Mars500 was a scientific mission trying to answer a big question: is man psychologically and physiologically able to endure the confinement of a trip to Mars? So in other words, can we spend 520 days in the muck of a spaceship with a crew of 6 without killing each other and still working efficiently together? And the answer is yes. Mars500 was a success because we were 6 when we entered, and we're still 6 when we exited a year and a half later, still working efficiently together. So after that, thanks to that, I was hired at the European Astronaut Center in Cologne to do astronaut support. So my role was to facilitate the daily life of the astronauts so that they can focus on their mission. So my analog mission helped me to understand what are the difficulties of being away from your family for a long period of time and feeling this isolation, even though I was just confined. And I tried to help, based on this understanding, the astronauts and their families to cope with their space missions.
And what was, I mean, you said, of course, it was a success because you were 6 and 6 when you went out. But what was the hardest part for you while being there, like on a personal level?
So there was not a difficult point per se. It was more a period of time. And I remember that for me, one of the difficult periods was a year after entering the modules. After some time, we have some routines and we live our life inside those modules, so inside our mock-up of a spaceship. But 1 year after entering the modules, so in June 2011, I started to receive a lot of messages from family and friends saying, yeah, great, continue like that. But more messages from journalists too, asking, so tell us what happened during that year and how do you foresee the 155 days still left ahead? And looking at everything that happened during that year is also looking at everything that you missed from the outside during that year. And it's not great. It doesn't feel so good. And looking 155 days ahead, that's a 5 months period. So it's not a short period of time. And in a way, and I realized that later, asking those questions, those journalists, they oblige me to look at the big picture, like a year and a half confined, and it didn't feel good. And during that period, I was more grumpy. I didn't have as much patience as I would have normally, and so it made it a bit more difficult. Luckily, we had some events that were kind of breaking our monotony. Like I had my birthday. My second birthday inside the modules a few days later, and it helped bring back some energy, and then we could continue.
And the crew dynamics were helpful in this.
That's very true. We all had ups and downs, but luckily not at the same time. So as a crew, we could help each other. I remember that another period that was a bit difficult for me, without even talking about it, and I realized that months later. I was feeling a bit down in the evening mainly, and we started again to play some video games with the other guys, like some LAN games, some multiplayer games, and I would just enjoy it. I would spend 1 hour with them playing some Counter-Strike, and after we'd go and look at each other and say, yeah, and you see on this map, and thanks to the crew bringing up some energy every evening like that with just this little thing, and without even talking about it, it was just happened like that.
Yeah, just spontaneously.
Exactly, it helped to go through.
I see. And so you mentioned a lot like a life inside the base and the crew dynamics and your psychological, let's say, mood and behavior. So what were instead the scientific experiments that you were in charge of, that you were performing during the year? Or
So we had a total of 105 experiments, but all of us had like a few experiments we were responsible for. I think I had 12 experiments that I was responsible for, and an example, one that I liked because it was complicated and simple at the same time, was a German experiment called Pilot, where we had to learn to pilot spacecraft and to dock it to a space station. And the idea was, the question was, can we learn complex skills while we are confined? And so we went through the whole process of acquiring those skills and then maintaining those complex skills throughout the mission. And I liked it because you don't get to learn how to pilot a spacecraft that often. So that's and to test it on the actual simulator, like the Soyuz simulator, we had it inside, so that was pretty nice.
With Euromoon Mars and our European funded project, which is called Eurospace Hub, we are committed to train young students and professionals that are now facing for the first time the space field. So I would like to ask you some advice to young people that are aspiring astronauts or that have this dream. So what would you suggest them, like, generally?
Well, for me it was a game changer, this Mars500 experiment, but I had the opportunity and the chance to do other analog missions, and I realized that you really need to understand when you start it what do you want to get out of it. So you have to be quite serious about this isolation part and the studies that we do there, because scientists behind need this data. So being serious about what you are doing helps to get the most out of those missions. Sorry. But other than that, it's a great way to understand differently, like to shine a different light on the astronaut experience. It's still different, but you can answer some questions. You can help try to put your little brick, or your little stone on the way going to Mars and further.
Thank you very much for your interview. It was very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.